So in last day's class, we had completed both the intrinsic and extrinsic pathways. And also in the previous two classes, we had discussed about caspases, we had discussed about BCL2 family. So today I'll be finally summarizing both the pathways. So let's move on to the first pathway, that was the extrinsic pathway. And if you look into the extrinsic pathway, the main enzymes and the receptors that are operative within the extrinsic pathway are the caspases and the death receptors. Now, if we look into the caspases family, the caspases family exists in two forms, the initiator caspases and the executioner caspases. The initiator caspases have a longer prodomain and the executioner caspases do not have any such prodomains. And if you look into the general structure, there is a cleavage site for caspase at here, the red arrow is showing, and at here. So as you can see, so the initiator caspases, the picture is shown downstream or down here also, has a longer prodomain. Now the initiator caspases of the death receptor pathway have a conserved sequence known as DED or death effector domain in their prodomain region, while the initiator caspases of the intrinsic pathway in their prodomain has a sequence known as caspase activity recruitment domain. In the extrinsic pathway, via the DED, the caspases bind with the the caspases via the DED bind with the adapter protein, and in the intrinsic pathway via the card domain they bind with procaspase 9 binds with the apoptosome complex. Now the classical example of the extrinsic pathway caspase is caspase 8. So we'll be referring to caspase 8 mainly in the next few slides of extrinsic pathway. And the main hallmark caspase for the intrinsic pathway is caspase 9. If we look into how caspases are cleaved, as you can see, these are the initiator caspases. They have a longer N-terminal prodomain and a C-terminal carboxyl group. They are known as caspases because they have cysteine amino acid in the active site and their target substrates where they cleave has aspartic acids. So these are the two subunits. So when the caspases are recruited by the adapter proteins, initially they are found as monomers in the cytoplasm, which is true for the extrinsic pathway. In the intrinsic pathway, the caspases are also found as monomers. When the signaling starts, the monomers are recruited to the adapter complex for the extrinsic pathway and to the apoptosome for the intrinsic pathway, where they dimerize, get activated, and then have a proteolytic cleavage to generate a tetramer like this. So this is the active form of caspase. Now the other players of the extrinsic pathway are the death receptors. The death receptors have a variety of names, but they all belong to the TNF receptor superfamily. Depending on the ligand they bind, FAS is also known as CD95. It binds with the CD95 ligand of the lymphocytes. So accordingly, the death receptors have a variety of names, but the common thing of all the death receptors is that they have a death domain in their cytoplasmic side. Normally, in the when there is no apoptotic signaling being perceived by the cell, the receptors are present in their monomeric configuration in the plasma membrane. Whenever there is apoptotic stimuli, the receptors tend to trimerize. These trimeric receptors then recruit the adapter proteins. Here the blue one, the adapter proteins. Here the example of FAS receptor is shown. So FAS receptor and FAS ligand example is shown, and hence the adapter is known as FAD, FAS associated death domain. Now this FAD recruits the adapter molecules and gets associated with the adapter molecules via the death domain of the adapter molecules. Once the adapter molecules have been activated, the adapter molecules now recruit the inactivated procaspase 8. The procaspase 8 is recruited here via and interact with the adapter protein via their DED. So this total complex is now known as death-inducing signaling complex. Within this death-inducing signaling complex, the procaspase 8 is catalytically cleaved to produce the active caspase 8, which then further cleaves the downstream caspase or the executioner caspase 3 mainly, which then translocates into the cytoplasm to cleave the, translocates from the cytoplasm into the nucleoplasm to cleave the ICAD from the caspase activated DNAs. Once the caspase activated DNAs is activated, DNA is fragmented at regular intervals of 180 base pair. So this was a rough explanation of the extrinsic pathway. Last day, we also said that there are two kinds of variants. One variant is the C-flip, which is a variant of procaspase 8. It has a death effector domain by which it can bind with the adapter protein, but it lacks the catalytic domains of a caspase. And the other variant was the decoy receptors. These receptors can recognize the death signals, but do not have death domains in their cytoplasm, thus cannot further transduce the apoptotic signals. So this was in nutshell the extrinsic pathway. If we move into the intrinsic pathway has a lot many players. Now the main family that is very important in the intrinsic pathway are the P53, we will come to P53 later on, are the BCL2 family. This is a family which has three basic categories of proteins in it. One is the pro-apoptotic member that favors apoptosis. One is the pro-survival member that favors survival. And the other group is also pro-apoptotic, but this is actually the killer pro-apoptotic group. This is the regulator pro-apoptotic group. So the regulator pro-apoptotic group actually controls the interaction of the pro-survival group with the killer pro-apoptotic group. So this is a picture of the regulators, and as you can see, a number of environmental signals, intracellular signals can reach these regulators. Normally, you can see the regulators remain inactivated in the cytoplasm. They are present in the cytoplasm, but they remain inactivated by a variety of mechanisms. For example, BIM is inactivated by the signaling RAS-RAF pathway. BMF is inactivated or attached to the actin cytoskeleton. BAD is inactivated by the AKT survival signaling pathway, where it remains attached to the 14-3-3 scaffold protein. And BID is also an inactive molecule. So whenever these signals reach these apoptotic regulators, which are otherwise also known as BH3 regulators, what happens? These regulators, what do they do? In normal condition, the pro-apoptotic members remain bound to the pro-apoptotic members, killer category, BAD. The pro-apoptotic members or BACs, they remain bound to the pro-survival members in the normal condition. Whenever a regulatory protein is activated, it actually pulls the pro-survival member towards itself, as a result of which this kind of killer proteins are free. So as you can see, normally the green remains partnered with this cream color protein. That is how they're present in the cytoplasm. Any one of the regulator, when activated by a number of pathways, what they do, these activated regulators open up the BCL2 from the BACs, so that BACs is now free to further continue its functioning. BID, as I said, is a regulator member. You can see that the extrinsic pathway cleaves, as you can see, there's a scissor, cleaves BID to produce in the extrinsic pathway, the caspase 8 that is generated, cleaves BID to generate an active BID. So this is how the regulators actually control the expression level of the BCL2 and the BAX. Normal condition, BCL2 and BAX are sitting together, joined hand in hand. The moment one or the other, any other regulator is activated, that joining of hands is broken, and the regulator now binds with the BCL2, making BAX free. So this is the basic mechanism that how the BCL2 family controls the internal cytoplasmic environment. Now, these are the, now coming to this part, these are the domains, by common domains that are shared by the different members of the BCL2 family. This is the pro-survival member having all the 4 BH3 famous domains. These are the BCL2 homology domain. It comes after the name of the protein. Why it is called BCL2 homology domain? Because this is a domain found in all the members of the BCL2 family of proteins, and it is by these domains that they interact with each other. Now, if you look into this, regarding the pro-apoptotic members, there are 2 categories. One are the killers, the others are the regulators. You can see the regulators are sharing only the BH3 domain with the pro-survival and the pro-apoptotic proteins. So, for example, BCL2 and BAX remain complexed with each other by the BH2, BH1 and BH3 domain. They interact by these domains and remain complexed with each other. The moment a regulator is activated, it interacts with the BCL2 BH3, as a result of which it pulls off BCL2 from BAX. BAX is now free. The moment BAX is free, BAX are found as inactive monomers in the cytoplasm, or they may remain as monomers on the mitochondrial membrane. The moment BAX is free, BAX can translocate to the mitochondrial membrane. It forms a pore on the mitochondrial membrane. As a result of this pore formation, the outer membrane permeability of the mitochondria is lost, and 3 categories of proteins are liberated from the mitochondria, as you can see. OMI, this is OMI and SMAC, and this is where's the other one? This is cytochrome C. So the moment the outer membrane permeability is jeopardized or compromised, 3 categories of proteins are liberated from the mitochondrial intermembrane space. One is the APAF, and the other 2 are the OMI and SMAC. Now let us see that, the one is the cytochrome C, not APAF, very sorry. One is cytochrome C, and the other is OMI and SMAC. Now let us see actually how are they present in the cytoplasm in normal condition. In normal condition, it is seen that cytochrome C is located in the intermembrane space of the mitochondria. And SMAC and OMI are also located in the intermembrane space of the mitochondria. And in the cytoplasm, the APAF is associated with a group of proteins known as inhibitor of apoptotic proteins. And the full form of APAF is apoptotic protease activating factor. So in normal condition, in a healthy cell, the IAP and APAF remain complexed with each other. The moment cytochrome C leaks out, along with OMI and SMAC binds with IAP, thus leaving APAF free to bind with cytochrome C. So this happens immediately when the outer membrane potential is jeopardized. So this is happening on one side. The other important player of the intracellular signaling is the P53. The P53, as you can see, can be activated by a variety of mechanisms. And once the P53 protein is stabilized in the cytoplasm, it can also play a variety of functions. So it plays a very big central role in cell cycle, in cell death, and obviously in the next topic we'll be taking up, that is cancer. This is the life of a p53 protein. Just see, if a p53 protein is translated and is present in the cytoplasm. In normal condition, p53 has a very small half-life, and you can see p53 binds with MDM2. MDM2 then ubiquinoilates p53. p53 is sent to degradation into the proteasome, where p53 is degraded. Mind it, if there is lower level of MDM2 in the cytoplasm, and suddenly the p53 expression has increased, p53 has a auto control regulation loop. Look here, if the p53 has suddenly increased, but there is no MDM2, p53 can also help in transcription of the MDM2 protein. So you can see it sits on the promoter element of the MDM2 gene, allowing MDM2 RNA synthesis and MDM2 protein synthesis. So it itself creates sentinels for its own destruction if MDM2 is shortage in the cell. However, if such signals arrive to p53, p53 is phosphorylated, and we have already read in the chapter of cell cycle that it can now target a variety of genes. Now, like look in this picture, it can target BAX, it can target NOXA, PUMA. These are the NOXA, PUMA, the only BH3 members, or the regulators, and BAX is a killer. Targeting any of these will, in the process, ensure apoptosis. And if you remember your previous cell cycle class, if p53 senses that the damage is not so grave, then it will target WAF gene to produce p21, causing cellular arrest. At times, it has also been seen, there are recent reports that p53 is also a transcriptional activator of APAP1. So p53 plays a very central role in actually increasing the expression of the pro-apoptotic proteins and the expression of the only BH3 proteins on receiving any kind of apoptotic signals. This is another page dedicated to p53. So if you can see, as I discussed the other day, whenever there is a mitotic or a cell survival signal, mitotic or mitogenic signal means cell will proceed for mitosis. Cell survival signal means that p53 will be degraded. Whenever there's a cell survival signal, it is evident that p53 will be degraded. So what is, you can see the p53 is phosphorylated. This is activated form. So if it's a mitogenic signal, we get an activated p53. See, there's a mitogenic signal. There is very low level of MDM2 in the cell. So what does p53 do? It's phosphorylated, activated, produces MDM2. The MDM2 represses the p53 activity and ultimately degrades the p53. So if there is just, we should always remember that p53 protein is automatically always being produced by the cell. Now, p53 protein, as I said, is half-life is very low. How? This is the mechanism by which its half-life is low. So if there is a survival signal, and if there is p53 protein in the cytoplasm, so p53 protein has to be inactivated. So what it does, it upregulates the MDM2 expression. Once the MDM2 expression is upregulated, the MDM2 binds with the p53, resulting in the degradation of the p53. However, if there is any DNA damage or something like that, then p53 activation also occurs. That pathway is not shown here. I discussed this just in the previous slide. p53 favors apoptosis. If we look into the p53 gene structure, this is the gene of p53 down. So here, this is the gene of p53. So you can see a proline-rich region, And these are sites of phosphorylation and the MDM2 binding region. Sequence specific DNA binding region of P53. As I said, the protein acts as a big transcription factor. So this is the sequence binding region of the protein to other promoter regions of other genes. Now coming on to the part where I left in the previous slide. So in the previous slide, we had said that the cytochrome C leaks out. Along with cytochrome C leaks out is SMAC and Diablo. The moment SMAC and Diablo leaks out with cytochrome C, in the previous slide I said, SMAC and Diablo then interacts with IAPs, as a result of which APAF is free. Once we get free APAF, cytochrome C can bind with APAF in an ATP-dependent fashion to form a 7-spoke wheel-like apoptosome. It is within that wheel-like apoptosome, procaspase 9 is recruited via its card domain. And procaspase 9 is activated. Activated procaspase 9 further activates the executioner caspases, and as a result, cleaving of the various dead substrates is done and apoptosis is completed. Next, this is a compilation of both the extrinsic and the intrinsic pathway. This has been shown by one BH3 regulator. So this is the death receptor signaling. Procaspase 8 is converted to active caspase 8. Active caspase 8 cleaves the BID regulator to produce an active BID. Active BID then removes BCL2 from BAX. As a result, BAX is free to form oligomers. Release of cytochrome C, SMAC, and Diablo with the formation of apoptosome complex and the execution of apoptosis. So there are cells where the amount of caspase 8 generated here might not be enough to produce effective caspase 3. Hence, at times, procaspase 8 signals via BID to the mitochondrial pathway and also involves the mitochondrial pathway. So, in a cell, when a cell is dying, both the pathways are essential for the complete cellular death of the cell. And if you look into this picture, I'm not explaining this picture. This picture is a glimpse of the circuit of apoptosis, the variety of proteins associated with the apoptosis. So this is a P53 module. This is the death receptor module. So the death receptors involved. P53 itself, it and its group of partner proteins. This is a signaling module. PI3, it's a signaling module, that is a signaling cascade is involved. RAS-MAP kinase, this is a signaling cascade, this is a signaling cascade, this is a signaling cascade. So when you get time, just see the pictures and check the known proteins, check their location where they are found. So when death is initiated in a cell, it is not a 1 or 2 pathway, it's a multiple pathway where there is constant crosstalk between the pathways to ensure that the cell undergoes a complete apoptotic death. So with this, I just summarized apoptosis.